Hello everybody, Derek coming at you. Coming at you from my home office this afternoon. I want to tackle a couple of quick and very important topics. Number one, you haven't seen me much on YouTube, well, except for the last couple of weeks. You haven't seen me much on social media. And that's because I made the conscious decision to stop supporting these communist companies that hate every single thing I stand for. I took a stand for principle. I killed off all my Facebooks and closed out of Facebook. I killed off my Twitter and closed off of Twitter. I don't even look at Facebook right now. I haven't looked at it in 2 or 3 months. 450 some thousand followers. Killed it all. And I've been weaning myself off of YouTube as well. I don't use Google ever. I never use Google. I use DuckDuckGo. And YouTube, of course, is a part of that family of companies. So this YouTube channel, were it not for my speech at the school board a couple weeks ago, was getting no attention. But thank you for all of you who saw that school board speech, viewed it. I think we're closing in on 700,000 views, commented, said thank you very much, and now you're a subscriber to my YouTube channel. I will be launching a podcast very soon, theoretically within the week. I've already in negotiations and have found a company that's going to carry it. And I hope you will come over to my podcast and become a subscriber, because you're not going to be seeing me a lot on YouTube. I'm going to do a couple more YouTubes here to give you a teaser to kind of show you what you're in for if you become a subscriber to my podcast. But I am not, I repeat, not going to continue to enable these companies that hate us, that hate our principles, that have banned people. They banned me left and right. They banned Donald Trump for life. These companies they're haters. And I'm not going to support them. But since I'm still on YouTube for the moment, I want to break down something today that you've heard about, everyone's heard about: systemic racism. Systemic racism, of course, I spoke at the school board meeting and shined a light on critical race theory, which promotes and purports and supports the idea that there's systemic racism in our society. If you ask me, is there a systemic racism? Is that really a thing? My answer to you is yes, there is systemic racism. There absolutely is systemic racism. There's no question about that. But, and this is a big but, I got a big old but. That question, is there systemic racism? That question cannot be asked in isolation. It can't. If we're going to ask, is there systemic racism, there are 2 other questions that have to be asked right alongside it. Number one, if there's systemic racism, where is it? Okay, where is it? If you can't identify it, if you can't locate it, then it doesn't exist. There is systemic racism, and I'll tell you where it is. We, African Americans, Black Americans, Negro, colored, take your pick, name changes every 10 years. I go with Black American. The Black American population in this country is, by and large, we are an urban population. We are clustered in our metropolitan cities, urban centers. So yeah, there are black farmers and black ranchers and blacks in small towns and stuff like that, of course. But the numbers are so small, they're almost statistically insignificant. We live in the major cities of our country. That's where we are located. The next question, if we're going to say there is systemic racism and blacks are located in our major metropolitan cities, then the next question that has to be asked about systemic racism is, who runs the system? Okay, that's what really matters. Who runs the system? I would argue that systemic racism in our federal governing structure is, for the most part, non-existent. Was there once upon a time? Everybody knows that. We passed the Voting Rights Act in 1965. We passed the Civil Rights Act in 1964. Actually, those are backwards. We passed the Federal Fair Housing Act. I mean, we have done everything that I think can be done at the federal level of governing to squeeze out the racist remnants of yesteryear. I can't think of one federally instituted policy or program that equally oppresses or discriminates against people of color in both Bangor, Maine, and in Billings, Montana. Not one. So if it isn't at the federal level, where is it? Where it exists is at the local level. So these issues, we see people burning down cities and looting and rioting and all this stuff. These are all local issues. Policing and police matters and in the way that we interact with law enforcement, that's a local issue. The police department of every city has a chief or a commissioner, and he or she sits in the mayor's cabinet. They report to the mayor. The mayor is a locally elected official. Fair housing and how we're discriminating against people and their ability to get housing in certain parts of town and things like that. Those are all local issues. Donald Trump doesn't affect that. Joe Biden doesn't affect that. Those are not federal issues for the most part. So if we're going to say systemic racism exists, we have to ask where. It exists where we live, in the cities. If we're going to ask, is it in the cities, we have to ask, who runs the system? Chicago, Illinois, city of my birth. Chicago, Illinois currently has Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Lori Lightfoot is a far, far left of center liberal Democrat. Chicago has had nothing but Democrat mayors since the beginning of time. Cities are governed by mayors and councils. The Chicago City Council has a 50-member body. There's a 50-member city council. The current makeup of the Chicago City Council is 46 Democrats, 4 independents, and 0 Republicans. St. Louis, Missouri, home of rioting that happened in the Obama administration. Michael Brown, Ferguson, actually just outside of St. Louis. St. Louis, Missouri has had a liberal Democrat mayor since the beginning of time. St. Louis, Missouri has a 28-member city council. The current makeup of that council is 28 Democrats, 0 Republicans. Baltimore, Maryland, more rioting due to police activity under the Obama administration during the Obama years. Freddie Gray. Baltimore has had a liberal Democrat mayor since the beginning of time. Baltimore has a 15-member city council, and the current makeup of that city council is 15 Democrats, 0 Republicans. Los Angeles, California has had a Democrat mayor since the beginning of time. It also has a 15-member city council, and the current makeup is also 15 Democrats, 0 Republicans. Minneapolis, Minnesota, where a lot of this stuff began, George Floyd, and the wrongful death, in my opinion, at the hands of police. Minneapolis has had a Democrat mayor since the beginning of time. Minneapolis has a 13-member city council. The current makeup of that council is 12 Democrats and 1 socialist reformist. San Francisco, California. San Francisco has had a left-leaning liberal Democrat mayor since the beginning of time. It has an 11-member city council. The current makeup of that council, 11 Democrats, 0 Republicans. Go just up the coast to St. Louis, to Seattle. Seattle and Detroit, Michigan, both of them have 9-member city councils. They both had Democrat mayors since the beginning of time. They both have 9-member city councils, and both of those city councils' current makeup is 9 Democrats, 0 Republicans. New Orleans is in trouble as we speak, just like it was in trouble under Katrina. New Orleans has had a left-leaning Democrat mayor since the beginning of time. New Orleans has a 7-member city council. The current makeup of the New Orleans City Council is 7 Democrats, 0 Republicans. I could keep going. We go all the way around the country because they're all the same. Milwaukee, Atlanta, Washington, D.C. We could go all the way around the country. The sole exception is New York City. New York City has a 51-member council. And the current makeup of that council, there's actually 3 Republicans. 3 out of 51. So, if we're going to say, is there systemic racism? The answer is yes. The next question, where is it? It's in the cities. It's where black people live. The next question is, who runs the system? So this was just a tease. Hopefully a little sample to whet your appetite and get you to want to come take a look at my podcast. Again, it should be up and rolling here in the next week or two. If you like what you just heard, you're going to get a lot more of it. If you don't like what you just heard, you're going to get a lot more of it. So signing off, I will be saying goodbye to YouTube forever, just like Facebook and Twitter very soon. Hope to see you on the other side.